So I realized at that point when I was in high school that a single chemical reactions can change the world. For example, this currently in our world we have roughly over 7. You know, some of the family they lost literally like half of the family just like that.
That's ridiculous.
So that's probably why people say I can tell you, yeah, you take the COVID vaccine.
What do you think makes you satisfied at that age?
True, this is very, very philosophical questions. If you ask me these questions when I'm drunk, probably I would say something else. Like, yeah, make me the Prime Minister of India.
Welcome to an episode on the Estelle Ingenuity Podcast. I'm Stephen Estelle, engineer, CEO, and founder of Estelle Ingenuity. In our episodes, we dive into different experiences from people who specialize in technology, entrepreneurship, and other necessary elements that will help you reach your full potential in these fields. We focus in on innovative devices that will be changing our society, stories from entrepreneurs and how they maneuver through the business landscape, and how these new technologies are being used in businesses to bring value to the world. From these stories, if you are inspired to develop your own inventions and prototypes, and you want to see your innovative ideas flourish, reach out to us at estelleingenuity.com for your prototyping needs so together we can begin creating the new devices of the future. With that being said, enjoy the show, follow and subscribe to Estelle Ingenuity Podcast, and relish the wisdom from the topic you hear today. So, right now we have our next episode for the Estelle Ingenuity Podcast. And here I would like to welcome our next person to join the show. Would you like to introduce yourself, Santanu, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Stephen, for inviting me. Really enjoying the podcast. Hopefully, I'm going to enjoy the next hour.
Nice.
My name is Santanu Mondal. I'm from India.
Okay.
And I'm a final year PhD student at YST.
Nice.
And my research, what I'm working right now is to make chemicals in more eco-friendly way, more sustainable way. And for that, we are learning from enzymes how it works in our body.
Okay, so enzymes to make chemicals more eco-friendly. So one thing I'd like to ask a lot of people who are in this field is, at the very beginning, what brought you to this field? So you come from India, and then what piqued your interest to start doing this kind of research?
So my background is chemistry because I like doing it, and also probably this is one of my strongest background that I could do something like advanced study. So I was looking for a PhD program abroad, and OIST kind of picked my attention because it was new, it was well funded, and a very beautiful campus. So I visited in 2018 for an interview at OIST and really liked it, and then decided to join a PhD.
Okay.
So initially, my interest, of course, picked into how to make chemicals in more eco-friendly way. But there are several ways you can do it.
Okay.
For example, as I said, enzymes also do it very well. But then I studied how enzymes make chemicals in one of the labs here. But that was more like more biochemistry and molecular biology techniques, which I really didn't have these techniques before. And then I ended up joining another lab, which also does it same, but they make artificial kind of enzymes in the lab.
Okay.
So that is I'm more comfortable with because it's mostly like making chemicals, like more designing stuff. It's kind of like a architect in a way, like you're making small designs, architect, how it works, it functions, and finally the end goal is to make like enzyme mimic, so it can do the job of an enzyme but without needing an enzyme.
So for the people out there who are listening, can you kind of explain, like, when people hear the word enzyme,
right?
What's the best way to explain an enzyme to somebody who is not in chemistry or science? What do you think?
So enzymes. So enzyme is a. I'm going to use another scientific term, which might be a bit difficult also, but I'm going to explain. Explain clearly. So enzyme is a nature catalyst.
Okay.
In our body. Now the catalyst, the term I used, the catalyst is a entity which makes chemical reaction faster.
Right. Okay.
That's simplistic it is. So enzymes is that catalyst, which is a molecule, can be bigger, it can be smaller, but its function is make reactions in our body faster. So for example, you eat food, whatever you eat, it has to digest to other molecules in your body, so we can sustain our life. So that integral part, that chemical reactions is done by these enzymes. So the reaction is very fast. So that's the enzymes work basically.
Okay. Yeah. So did you get interested in like chemistry and enzymes just from curiosity, or was there like any influence from family, or like what actually kind of pushed you towards chemistry as a kid?
Very interesting question.
There you go.
So, of course, so I didn't know that I will be studying chemistry, in 28 years old. I didn't really plan that when I was in school.
Right. It's like, oh yeah.
This is something I didn't really plan. Like as an Indian kid, probably my family was expecting that I will be going to medical or probably engineering.
That's like a thing, I'm guessing?
That's like a thing in India because, because that's usually makes money much faster. It's an economical situation. Like, it's a good future for you, but you don't want to be scientist. That's like, it's a no usually.
Okay, interesting.
So, and then, so I of course I went to university and then kind of picked a subject chemistry because when I was studying in this high school level, when this scientific innovations was kind of, we started studying, one of the reactions, kind of like chemistry related innovations, really struck my mind. It was ammonia synthesis, and it has a ammonia synthesis. Why
so?
Yeah, I'm gonna explain. Okay. So, for example,
go for it.
So I realized at that point when I was in high school that a single chemical reactions can change the world. For example, this currently in our world we have roughly over 7 billion people.
Okay.
And these explosions of birth and people that we could sustain, it's because we can make a lot of food. And
true. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Okay, got
it.
Okay.
100 years before, we didn't have actually the technology to make fertilizer artificially. It was mostly like naturally occurring like fertilizers we are like exporting from maybe Peru or somewhere in South America. Okay. But then a German scientist who is who I think German or probably Austrian, who is Fritz Haber. So he developed a technology which is a simple reactions. You take nitrogen from air and take hydrogen from air, and then you mix it, you catalyze it, and you make ammonia, which is basically fertilizer.
And this allows us to
make fertilizer. And
food.
You would be probably very surprised to know that currently over 7 billion people, over 50% of our nitrogen in our body comes from that reaction.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
So because of this reaction, we can produce more food to allow more people to live naturally.
Exactly.
I actually didn't know that. That's an interesting thought. Chemistry is allowing us to actually have this large population.
Yes, not only chemistry, only one single reactions that change the world we are now. There are so many other reactions that exist today.
Yeah.
But this simple reaction is, and also it's a catalytic reaction.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, it's very difficult to make ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen.
Okay.
Because you need to make the reaction faster and possible. Okay. Usually, it doesn't happen like the air. So they developed it, and we are enjoying currently a lot of food and abundance of resources.
Interesting.
Very interesting, right? So when I'm studying these kind of innovations, it's like, man, I'm gonna study chemistry because that's one of the things that probably I can contribute in the society.
Okay.
Because I believe like, of course, the basic necessities in life. It's like clothes, foods, and shelter.
Yeah.
But also probably medicine and also one of the probably core area which can be also be contributed, and probably now it's one of the basic necessities. So that time also I was thinking maybe I should be working on related to making chemical manufacturing, which will be more like eco-friendly, eco-sustainable, and also can be used for like medicines and pharmaceuticals as well.
Okay.
So that kind of piqued my interest back in the early high school, and then later in the college, and then I studied organic chemistry.
I hated organic chemistry. That was actually my worst class in college.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of students, they hate it because there are a lot of things you have to remember, but I think organic chemistry, it's a subject you have to feel rather
You're
than
the first
logic.
person to say that to me. Yeah, I remember me, my brother, I remember just going through organic chemistry and just kind of thinking like, all right, once all this carbon and like, I just got so annoyed of seeing all the rings and having to draw it all, and like, I just remember that was a struggle for myself.
Yeah, it can be a struggle. I could totally think about from my school days. A lot of people really struggled. I also struggled a bit, but I feel like there's some of the things like basic you have to remember something to understand the next stage. Yeah, like sometimes there are also a lot of anomalies which doesn't really add up. Like there are a lot of it's not like straightforward like physics. Oh, if this happened, then this happened. And chemistry is like, if this happened, that doesn't necessarily mean this gonna happen. It can be opposite.
That was tough times. So I'm curious now. So with these different chemical reactions and enzymes and the research you're doing, I'm interested in how a lot of companies and corporations are trying to kind of go eco-friendly. To make things more sustainable and things of that nature. So first, I'm curious, what's your thought on the approach? Do you think we're getting better at being eco-friendly and more sustainable?
Yes. I think that there is definitely a trend that people slowly realizing that we really need to make a change. Probably the companies in the top, they don't want to change it because, of course, it doesn't make them so much profitable because there is already existing technology which is working in a different setup, and then if you have to like adapt to a new technology which takes probably a lot of manpower, money and things, it's good for the environment. So I think slowly it's changing, but maybe not as fast that we could make it happen.
So I was talking to one of my friends. He's a civil engineer in Chicago, and so he works with like the ducts in buildings that are like producing like the air and things of that nature. And we were having a conversation about how some companies would say they're eco-friendly and, they're doing electrical work instead of fossil fuels. But then he goes into this idea that, of course it takes fossil fuels to make electricity.
Yeah.
So to a certain degree, I wonder, is it actually sustainable when you're using fossil fuels to make electricity to try something? And so I guess sometimes I'm always curious, is it just a trend so people can kind of like write off on their taxes, or is it actually like legitimate?
It actually depends, because I think this overall being like probably working with a sustainable technology and things, I think it's also kind of add up to a philosophical point of view as well, because how much you want to be sustainable. I think in some cases there are a lot of people that are really trying to make a change, and there are other people who are probably just trying to take the name, this is a green technology, so you can have a tax relaxation per se. Definitely, I think we are kind of, there are a lot of people in the middle where, they don't want to do, probably don't want to take like 100% eco-friendly technology because it probably costs them, or maybe it's not very efficient. But definitely there is a trend towards a positive side. But the problem is it's all about time game, and we probably don't have that much time to make the sustainable change that faster. But we could do it. But the problem I find is because these big companies, they have a lot of abundance and resources. They don't probably really want Like they are not probably thinking at night, the owner of a big company, oh, we have to change this, because they're probably like 80 years old, 60 years old.
I think that's the issue. Right?
Yeah, like, yeah.
It's like, let to the next generation. The Gen Zers. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, why I have to make, there's a lot of business related thing that they have to take care, they have to think about, and I can totally see where it's coming from. It's like, yeah, I don't want to do that, like 20, 30 years is fine for me.
That's broken, though.
Right?
That's broken.
Yeah.
So thinking about that and how, of course, businesses they're going to do business. But you mentioned earlier, we were talking about like ammonium and the fertilizer. You're inspired to contribute.
Yeah.
How do you want to contribute, or what are you doing to contribute to this? I don't know, battle.
Yeah.
Whatever you see.
It is a real battle right now.
How are you contributing to that?
Well, I'm trying. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to. I mean, I think all scientists have a philosophical part of it.
Yeah.
No matter whether you are really contributing right now.
Yeah.
A lot of basic science, as you know, Stephen, like, it can be useful for like 10 years later, 20 years later. Right. So I'm also working on one of these field which is promising to be more eco-friendly than the current existing technology we have.
Okay.
So I want to work on that part of it as well. So the topic that I'm working on is related to the pharmaceutical industry and medicinal compounds. So there are different types of compounds, chemical can be used as medicines.
Okay.
Like, for example, that can be antibodies, bigger molecules can be polymers, or can be a small molecule. Small molecules, like a smaller in size, you can see. Like there are different types of molecules, can be smaller to medium size to bigger, and they have different weight. We can measure the weight as well. So
that's wild.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So they're one part of one class of a molecule we call small molecules.
The what? Just the size.
So I'm saying there are different types of compounds can be used as a medicine. There can be small molecule, medium sized molecule, a bigger molecule.
Okay.
But one of the very researched area, or there are a lot of probably, I think, I'm not sure what is the percentage, but majority of the compounds come into the small molecule area.
It just happens. That's how it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of these active sites which can be like controlled with small size molecules.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, this aspirin or paracetamol, they're small size molecules. Usually,
are these popular?
Like for example, paracetamols you take for your painkiller, like ibuprofen. These are very small active ingredient. They are the small class of organic molecules.
Gotcha.
So I'm also working on this field. So that means making smaller size or small molecules which can be used as drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, the bigger molecule is like a polymer molecule, which can be like a really big, like huge chain of molecules, which technically can be used as a medicinal purposes, but usually people don't do it.
Why?
I think it's a permeability problem, because polymer usually is not very soluble,
So we can't absorb it yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So the smaller one is easy to absorb.
Absorb.
Okay.
Also, in smaller size molecule, they have also different in medicinal term, like this solubility, and also like permeability. We call cell permeations, whether it can go to your blood-brain barrier or can cross, also because there are a lot of enzymes works, so it can digest the small molecules. There's a lot of problems can happen, but anyway, so I'm working on this category of molecules. It's called small molecules. And these small molecules are very attractive to screen as medicines, and there are a lot of companies, big pharmaceutical companies, you name it. Every company has this research and development sector as well, where they screen different compounds, collaborations with for probably hospitals and different biology-related group, and they make drugs, for example, and then they prescribe it to the people. So of course, we are not making drugs in our lab. We are making drug-related compounds which could be useful for other varieties of disease which are not treated yet.
So So wait, explain that again. So so you said you're not making drugs.
Yeah.
But you're trying to develop a new drug to combat something that hasn't been combated yet?
Yeah. So for example, in the pharmaceutical industry, what they do, they already have probably a molecule in their mind that can be used as a drug. And they try to make it probably in for example, 5 steps, from A to B to C to E, and E is the compound.
Okay, this reminds me of lab and okay, I got it. Yeah, I hate you gotta try it. Yeah, okay, exactly. I got you. That's the worst.
Yeah, so you got the E, but you need to know how to go from A to B to B to C to get the E.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of options to go from, for example, A to directly E.
Okay.
So that can reduce the steps. Or there could be from if you want to probably make a chemicals probably X, and you don't have any idea how to make it, and then but X you think can be used for example cancer or name it. That's how their departments they can guess which kind of compound can be useful depending on the which active site of an enzymes or an enzymatic process you want to block it.
Yeah.
So but there are a lot of problems of making compounds, and that's why some of the, for example, if you have a headache, that drugs probably you take aspirin or any pain-related medicine, which is very cheaper. But for example, the new drugs, I'm not sure if it's a diabetes type 1 type of drugs comes out in the market, that will be really expensive because
it's hard to make, or
can be because that's what they say, and in many cases also it's hard to make. Because those drugs are very complicated in structure, so it's very laborious, and also we don't have other options how to make the drugs. So we are working on these steps to find out novel alternatives, how to make it more eco-friendly way.
Okay, I get that. I'm curious. Can people monopolize a way of making a drug?
They do.
You could do that.
Yeah. So usually, if the company develop their own route, they make a patent, and they usually last for 20 years. Yeah. So after that, if the patent expires, and then other company they can reproduce.
Right. That's really the off-brand stuff.
Yeah, off-brand stuff. But usually, But sometimes people, I don't know, because not many people probably know about this stuff, so they think, for example, this company already made this medicine, so probably this is the best way.
Right.
But because they had the patent, so they had the authority to make it. Other companies cannot do it. But it's kind of the same. A lot of other companies comes probably 20 years later and they started making the same chemicals, but probably their sales are not that high, although they're cheaper. It's just the trust issues probably.
That makes sense, the name brand thing. So thinking about that, when people patented a new medication, I always thought it was just the end product. But I guess I think that's one thing that I was kind of thinking about is it's not, so you patent the process.
Yeah, you can technically patent, for example, so if you take a tablet, so in the tablet you can patent many things. For example, in the tablet, the active ingredient, which is the drug, how to make it. If it's a novel, your company made it, so you can make a patent.
Right.
The compounds that this way you made it. Also, the way probably you prescribe, if it's a new patch or new type of tablet, you can even make a patent on probably the structure as well. How you prescribed it, because probably this is the best way the drug should be taken. So usually these are patented, but the most important part is the drugs, that this is effective, because usually if you develop a drug, it has to go through this FDA approval.
Yeah, I hate that stuff.
Yeah,
it's tedious.
Yeah, it's very tedious, and that's why it takes usually drugs can take over 10 years of making to directly come to patient's hand. And they are $1 billion of probably investment in the process, because these drugs are very difficult to make. And particularly there are also a lot of people and businesses also associated with it. And that kind of racks up the cost. But that's interesting. Yeah. But But there's another interesting point. For example, I was reading one of the study recently. I'll call only the American in reference.
Yeah.
So here was thing is like, over the years, last 30 years, the research and development, the budget has been increased. But most of the drugs, their price didn't really goes down. They're always increasing.
Right.
Because it's because although most of the research and development fund actually goes to making this kind of drugs, how to make it easier, how to make new drugs. But whenever it comes to the market, it's very expensive, and most of the people cannot afford it.
Right.
It's because the companies, they have this, as you said before, they have the monopoly over making these things, and they can charge as much as they want. It's like a business tactics than like a real deal.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, one thing I think about. So I'm curious. So for you and what you're doing, what exactly is there like a certain cause that you're targeting? Like you said, it's like cancer or I don't know, diabetes. Is there anything?
Currently, because we like there are some of the reactions product that the people made it was screened for diabetes, like few type of, I'm not sure exactly, but they are like show some promising results. But for my case, my project is slightly far. I'm not like looking directly for the applications part yet, because it also takes a lot of other type of work. But currently what I'm working on, making this type of molecule more eco-friendly way, how we can do it.
Okay.
Yes. So that other drugs, because as I said, this intermediate, it's very difficult if you want to make a new type of drugs.
Right.
So we are making this kind of intermediate small organic molecules, which can be used for drugs, but we are not like screening yet.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. It reminds me of like in the lab, like 2-day labs trying to make a drug trying it out. So can I ask, what's the longest it took to make a thing for you?
So for me, it's like in some cases, in one step of a reaction, for example, A to B, it takes like in some cases like 1 week.
1 week.
Because the reaction is very slow. In my cases, some of them can be a week, even, but longest I think more than a week. Because some of the reactions that we do, it's in extremely low temperature, like -50, -70. So we want to make compounds like precisely the way we want. So that's why we have to like control a lot of other parameters. For example, temperature, one of them, because that's how you can make a reaction very selective.
Right.
And so that's why it's also it became very slow.
Patience.
Yeah, the patience is the key.
So I'm curious then, has there been any cases where, I mean, I'm sure, but where you started a reaction and it just failed?
Oh yeah. Because we are doing this trial and error method. So we are trying to develop the new methodology. So in most of the cases, it's actually failed. The trial is failed. So my research area is, as I said before, because I wanted to work with the enzymes, but then later I realized that you probably don't need an enzymes. You can make your artificial enzymes in the lab, like without needing enzyme, but also it can work like an enzyme.
Okay.
And so it can mix with that artificial enzymes. You can make a lot of these small organic molecules. So I'm kind of testing these artificial enzymes in the lab, how to make these molecules, like drug-like molecules, or what do you say, can be easier and more eco-friendly way, because current like existing technology that we use, they use a lot of, for example, these heavy metals, which comes like very less quantity in the earth. For example, iridium, palladium, they're heavy metals. They're also very toxic. So usually the current technology based on this kind of element, using this kind of element. So we are trying to avoid this, and probably I was thinking maybe this is one of the way. So we can, if you do enzyme mimics, so it's very eco-friendly, because you can you don't really need this kind of heavy metals in your reactions.
Okay. Are the heavy metals, you said they're like bad for us, but we're still taking them as medicine?
Yes.
So
not as a medicines. In some cases we are taking as a medicines, but in cases like in the manufacturing department, we're using this one as a crucial catalyst.
Gotcha. Yeah. To get it going.
To make the product.
Okay. So then now I want to get into that other question about, I guess, after PhD.
Yeah.
And the question that we talked about before was, if you're doing this research and it turns out it's great, it's working well, which I hope the best for you. I hope it works really well and you get something going and you're like, wow, we can actually use this molecular compound to really help a lot of people in this field.
Yeah.
And similar, I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably have this question, but everybody has suspicions towards big pharma. And going into that is, what do you think is the best way, or how would you approach this idea of the pharmaceutical companies buying off these beneficial medicines to people?
Right.
So then they don't lose their own competition because, maybe they're so used to servicing an illness instead of curing the illness.
Right. Yeah, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Point. But yeah, of course, for example, if I really get a really interesting result so the primary objective would be, why not after PhD start your own company, or doing something. But also, I think it's these pharmaceuticals companies, they are massive in scale. Mm-hmm. They're probably one of the biggest in the world in many cases, and they have I'm not sure how in the competitions you can overtake them.
Is it even possible?
I think it's difficult. If you have as a small startup, it's very difficult probably because usually, as I said, in making a drugs, it takes a lot of other collaborations and a lot of capital. For example, making one drugs can take up to $1 billion, making just a single drug. So I don't think as a startup I have the money. But you can probably collaborate with maybe your technology. You know how to make it, and this can be used to make, for example, a diabetes drug.
Yeah.
And then they have to just screen it. So you can probably can be a small company which is helping to make a drugs, but doing everything by themselves, a small company, it's very difficult. I actually didn't see a lot of companies that do it. They do the small companies in our field. What they do, they call CROs, which is they do part of service.
Okay.
So they already developed a technology and they're selling it to a bigger company. I know how to make this molecule and you need that. So maybe just give us some money and then we're gonna
make it for you.
Yeah, make it for you. Maybe we don't sell the patent, but we will service you. Something like that.
Okay, I get what you're talking about. That was the end of an episode of the Estelle Ingenuity Podcast. Hope you learned something new and innovative and were left inspired to go create and invent new ideas for the betterment of society. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the Estelle Ingenuity Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for more stories and experiences from people in the field and to hear about new up-and-coming technology. Thank you for listening and see you in the next podcast episode.